Hey, what's up, Geekscapists? Welcome to a brand new Geekscape episode. I'm Jonathan London, your host, and we continue to record the show remotely during quarantine and COVID-19, and there's been tons of news about that. So if y'all are brand new Geekscape listeners, we're going to talk a little bit about pop culture and movies, video games, comic books. That's kind of what I think you were in store for when you downloaded a podcast called Geekscape. So I just don't want any surprises. If you're a longtime Geekscapist, well, welcome back. I'm glad to have you. Grab your favorite drink, sit up. Maybe you're driving somewhere and listening to this on the podcast and not watching live. And hey, drive carefully, okay? I don't want you like swerving all over the lanes. I once got an email from my good friend Martin Scherer up in Toronto who said, I almost wrecked my car listening to Geekscape. I was laughing my ass off. Well, sorry about that. But I guess if you're going to wreck your car, there are worse ways to do it than listening to this show. Then again, maybe there are a lot of better ways to do it too. Let's not get into the semantics on that one. I just want to let you all know here at Geekscape, you are an award winner. The Geekscape co-produced film Chasing Fletcher Allen that opened at film festivals online, but still counts in this 2020, actually won some awards this past weekend. As y'all know, we've been playing for over a week at the Lady Filmmakers Film Festival, which was an online film festival that usually is held in Beverly Hills. Usually this film festival is in person and has all of the bells and whistles, but this year they were forced to go online, and we played online for a week and are still playing online for another week as of the recording of this on the 5th of October. But what was really awesome was we were nominated for 3 awards. Heidi got nominated for Best Actress, Phil Lamar got nominated for Best Supporting Actor, and the film got actually nominated for Best Comedy. And we came home with the Best Comedy Award and a Best Supporting Actor award for Phil. So let's all pat ourselves on the back. Congratulations, Geekscapists. You are now a part of an award-winning film. Let me see. Wait, I think Dock of the Dead won some awards too, so you were a part of that one. But hey, we're winners here at Geekscape. So maybe you came to Geekscape because you're like, hey, I'm a geek. I'm living my life as a loser and I can't take it anymore and I want to find like-minded people like myself. Well, you've come to the right place because now we're winners, all right? But I always thought y'all were winners, whether or not you're listening from Long Island and your name is Big Yanks, or maybe you're listening here in Los Angeles. Wherever you are around the world, I think you're a winner. But awesome, we are officially winners recently. So there's that. Want to remind everybody that while you're winning, there's actually a pretty precarious situation we're all in here in the United States. So I'm going to need all of y'all to vote. Some of your states are starting to wrap up their registrations to vote. Go to vote.gov, vote.gov, and register to vote if you haven't. Tell your friends and family to vote. Tell anybody you think might still be undecided or for some insane reason has the fiction in their heads that, I don't know, both sides just kind of seem the same. What's the point? I don't really see why I should bother. It's all the same anyway. I think by this point, it's pretty clear that this is not all the same. Trump came down with COVID last week, and he just walked out of Walter Reed after 3 days of treatment with some, I don't know, Bruce Banner super serum that they injected him with to keep him alive. He steps out with his mask, immediately takes it off, and now he's gasping for air. So it's not the same. The myth that the anti-science, anti-intelligence real myth that is being perpetuated here, that is one that is dangerous, and let's vote against it. Let's go ahead and flip this table November 3rd. But we're going to need everybody to vote. And I'm guessing that the smart side is going to have to vote by a pretty wide margin to avoid any kind of shenanigans that might come as a result of, the conspiracy theories that are going to start bouncing around and already have started bouncing around going into the election. So again, let's make it super simple. You're going to go and vote. Your friends and family are going to go and vote, and you're going to keep putting on the pressure to vote and try and score one for intelligence and decency going into the election. All right, so let's just keep the pressure on. We only have to be annoying for one more month. All right, if you think about it, you only have to be annoying for one more month. I've been annoying for a lot longer than that. So you can do it. I believe in you. I can believe that you can be as annoying as me for 1 month. All right. And that is what I've got to say on that subject. Go out there and vote. To kind of show y'all how to really work with somebody as annoying as me, here is my co-host. Katie, Elsa Esper. Katie, how are you, kiddo?
Look, I just need to address the elephant in the room. I'm dressed up right now for a job that I have to head off to right after this podcast. So
you're wearing a bow tie, and I gotta ask you, does it spin? Can you like flick it? Does it spin? What kind of like special gadgets does it have?
It's, you know, if I could figure out how to make this thing turn, just like be like, do my eyebrows and it just goes whew, whew, whew. That would be great. Don't have that ability. This is just a plain old Jeff Bezos Amazon purchase, which you know, I'm buying into the monotony of evil. That's fine.
I love that you bought from a supervillain to look like a supervillain. That's my favorite part about it.
I 100% do. I'm just, you know, listen, I'm a white American person and I just have to play the part now. So I have a bow tie on. Yeah, no, I have to do, like, as soon as this podcast is over, I have to go host a show for a bunch of kids in Australia.
Listen, that's the strict timeline right there.
Yeah, no.
Poisonous kids in Australia. Listen. Like,
no, they're good kids. They're good kids. And I'm excited for it. It's just, you know, we're all doing our gigs. We're all trying to make ends happen. So, you know.
Yeah, but most of us are working from home in our boxer shorts and you're putting on bow ties. I think you're going in the opposite direction than most of us during this pandemic.
I've got the sweatpants on.
Okay, all right.
I got the button-up shirt and the bow tie because, you know, when you work for the corporate world, you gotta look like the corporate world.
Katie, aren't they open, like, and pretty safe over there in Australia? Weren't they like really early adopters to the whole science and the precautionary measures? Like, why aren't they just actually getting their entertainment live? They have to get somebody from the other side of the planet to entertain them and dress like this. I think they're throwing a gag on you. I think this whole thing is a setup. Yeah.
Oh, I'm the boob, aren't I?
All I got to say, Katie, is I'm going to leave the window open once you leave. And if for some reason you pop into the video and they have a lower third that says, let's see how stupid the American is, feel free to just bail.
Easy.
Epic paycheck, come back to Geekscape. I would never do that to you. Okay?
I appreciate that. I really do appreciate that. It's been...
You and I have a contract. If there's going to be a dumb American on the show, it's going to be me.
Okay. All right. Well, that's good. Yeah, no, I'm definitely leaning hard into the dumb American right now.
Okay. All right, Katie. Real quick, though, I did take your advice because you are smarter than me. And I watched Enola Holmes on Netflix. I got to tell you,
what'd you think?
That's the best movie I've seen this year.
It's fun. It's like, don't think about it in the context of Sherlock Holmes, just like the whole gamut of Sherlock Holmes as is, but like as a fun.
Why
movie.
Isn't he taking opium? Like
right.
That never.
Why isn't he an asshole? Yeah, no, it's just a fun movie, and the same could be said to Ted Lasso. Like that's another one that I highly recommend.
Ted Lasso was great. Enola Holmes was fantastic. I loved how tight it was, and it just kept moving. From the writing to the acting to the camera, they killed it on that one, and I was able to segue the good fortune. Like, you know, Heidi watched it with me, and she's usually not up for these kind of movies, but I got to roll it right into Vampires versus the Bronx, also on Netflix, which is sort of like an Attack the Block type. Kids living in so
I'm already down with it because I love Attack the Block, but okay.
But these kids living in the Bronx, and it's sort of a gentrification message, but these white folks start coming to their neighborhood and buying up properties, and there's something a little bit more mysterious about them. They're effing vampires. And if you like Attack the Block, and if you like Monster Squad and that kind of thing, it's on Netflix, and I think it's a lot of fun.
The quote for 2020 should be, fucking white people.
Okay, I got to tell you, every month of this year is really a year in of itself. So you're actually allowed to get 11 quotes so far, or 10. Look at this. This is nominated for Best Actress. Heidi Cox just came into the recording studio. If you are watching this live on the video, Heidi's right here. And Heidi, can you come over to the mic, please? I just need to interview you for 2 seconds before I bring our guest Vali in.
I just relate this to her because she can't hear you because you got.
She can't hear me. No.
But congratulations! I'm so glad to be a part of the project.
And congratulations on winning Best Comedy Short.
Oh, thank you! Congratulations to you, Katie, and congratulations to you, Jonathan, because that was a team effort, was it not?
It was a team effort. I'm sorry you did not win your Best Actress award.
Oh, it's okay. There were like 150 films, and I got narrowed down to 11. And I was in a company of like 10 other girls. So, and they were all very talented. So
That's awesome.
On to the next one.
Yes. But
There she is, co-writer, producer of our best comedy winning.
Oh, so exciting. I know. I'm so happy. And I was just fixing that back there because I was watching it from in the dining room and the closet was open.
Yes. Oh, shit. That mummy could have come out of the closet. That's a surprise I'm saving for the Halloween episode. Oh, my goodness. Yeah, sorry.
I like your bow tie. Bow ties are cool.
Yeah.
Thanks. I'm basically a Chippendale stripper right now. Like, that's all it is.
She's stripping for a bunch of kids in Australia soon.
That's what I do.
Yeah, I don't mean to spoil the Halloween episode or the Halloween surprise, but I've been keeping reanimated corpses in my closet. And thank goodness Heidi did not let those out. All right, let's get to it. You've got some movie recommendations to check out later today when you're done with the Geekscape, but let's get to the meat of our show. Our good buddy Vali, I think I pronounced his name right. I'm not even going to try to chew on his last name, but what's cool about him is that he is a writer-producer on 30 Rock and Modern Family, and he came out with this brand new graphic novel. And during quarantine, he's like, dude, how do I find a publisher? I think I'm just going to put this thing online so you all can read it for free right now at geniusanimals.net. I'm going to start mangling my words the faster I go, but it's at geniusanimals.net. You can read the book for free. And what's really cool is I discovered Vali by him just sending me an unsolicited email. I think he was looking up that geek on Google and was like, what podcast can I go to? And I found Geekscape. I'm going to send this dude an email. And I responded immediately. It was like, hey, the art on this book is sick. You seem like a really cool guy. Let's get you on Geekscape so Katie can butcher your last name. So without further delay, here's Vali to talk to you all about Genius Animals. How are you, buddy?
Hey, everybody. Doing great. that was excellent work with my name. Thank you so much.
Just going to steer clear. I know my limitations, sir. I know my limitations.
Yeah. I didn't appreciate the attacks on my president earlier in the show, but I don't want to deal that. I don't want to delve into politics right now.
No, Vali, tell us about your love of the president. Tell us.
No, I was mentioning earlier, my wife is running for city council here in Los Angeles, and part of the reason that's great, it's great because she's very frustrated with homelessness in LA and has actual policies to try and implement that. She's an urban planner by training, but I like it because it gives me something I can focus on that isn't national politics right now, which can be very crazy making for a lot of people. So I can obsess about something smaller and more local, and I can I can volunteer on the campaign or make phone calls and things like that. So I feel like there's general craziness going about right now, and a lot of my friends have different methods of doing it, whether like watching an entire TV show in one night, or whenever I go to buy booze, like it's the busiest they've ever been at the liquor store. But that it's like the command central in Apollo 13 every time I go over there. It's just such chaos. But that's how I've been getting through it this period now.
Yeah, I love that there are lines around the liquor store and the gun stores here in Los Angeles. That's gotta be.
I have not seen the lines around the gun store. That makes sense.
I don't know if you've ever been towards like Burbank area. There's literally a store called Gun World.
I know Gun World.
Yeah, of course. We all know Gun World. But I've driven by it and I've seen like a line out the door just like down the street. And I was like, oh, this is terrifying. This is America.
Yeah, welcome. Gun World is going down. Well, Vali, I love that. First off, I think that the platform that your wife is running on is a really important one. As somebody who does a lot of, I run a lot outdoors, and I see firsthand, whether it's the LA River or Balboa Park or any of these areas, LA does have a homeless problem that it wrestles with a lot. And I think that a lot of cities are. My native Austin, Texas has a big homeless population. And I started watching this YouTube series called The Soft White Underbelly, which is a documentarian who made a lot of money in advertising. And go check it out on YouTube if you're listening to this. But he brings in people who are homeless and he interviews them about the abuse in their lives that have led to them being homeless, whether it's physical abuse growing up or addiction or any of these unstable environments that normalize instability to the point where when the bottom falls out on you, you say, hey, this is actually an option that I can deal with, and I'm going to be homeless. And our treatment of the homeless is obviously the barometer for how well we treat each other in this society. So I think that's an incredible platform. And I'm going to say right here on Geekscape, while we went out and told people to get the vote, she's got mine. Let's do that.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah.
That's nice.
Would you like to share her name right here?
Her name is Nithya Raman, and I actually will say one thing about homelessness that as we live in this area and we see it a lot. One fascinating thing is she started this volunteer group that went around our neighborhood and talked to every homeless person to find out like what services they need, what's going on, and what they learned was sort of fascinating. And that there is a lot of what you're talking about, addiction and background stuff, but there's also this other thing that's happening that right now rent is going up really fast in Los Angeles, and it's kind of crazy.
It's so antithetical to like what it seems to be like the issue. Like it feels like there's going to be a lot of vacancies. People are kind of going back home to their parents and like and not filling these spaces. It seems like there's going to be more spaces for people to occupy, and yet the prices are going up.
That yes, it's sort of happening in the very short run since coronavirus. It feels like maybe there is a little bit of slack in the market, but over the last 10 years, like rent has gone up a huge amount of money. And what seems to be happening is as people get priced out of their place, they end up thinking something else happens at the same time, and they end up like leaving their apartment for a while, and it's always temporary at the beginning. But once you leave, it becomes really hard, and they stay in their neighborhoods because that's where their friends are. That's where they have some support structure. And it will really open my eyes, and it's not the way I thought about it before, that these are people who lived in houses around me before, and that's not what you hear the story of some big addiction issue, and they're coming from all over the place. So I know this is not the geekiest of topics, but if you live in LA right now, it's impossible to not think about it all the time.
Vali, I've been doing the show for 15 years. We cover everything, and all I want to know is
politics is pretty geeky. Just want to put that out there.
Yeah. Yes.
The thing that interests me the most, and I don't mean to be callous, is you live in Silver Lake. This initiative that they went out and started talking to homeless people. How many hipsters did they accidentally interview, thinking they were homeless people, but they were really just people who had let their beards grow too much and were like wearing clothes from the 70s.
That's a great question. This is where longitudinal work, like where you're really going to the same people every week, allows you to not make errors like that.
Yeah. Okay.
You get a finely tuned eye to be able to tell what the choice hipster from lifestyle brought them this way over here.
Is there wax in that beard? Let me see. Okay.
Yeah. Is this a strong man, old timey strong man look that I'm actually looking at? Yeah.
Right. Speaking about documentary and like all that, I was just reading the second chapter of your online comic, and I love the fact that you have basically a Werner Herzog character, which is animated. Like it looks like Werner Herzog.
Katie.
Sorry.
It is Werner Herzog.
No, it is Werner not Sog.
Okay.
For legal reasons, we did not use
Werner not. But like the voice you gave him was so on point. I was just like, obviously we're all very obsessed with Werner Herzog and how he speaks and how he like sees the world. But how did you kind of come into that character?
I mean, I have loved so just the high level view is Genius Animals is about this girl who's in a relationship and she thinks things are going well. Her name is Alexandra Lakshmi, and one day her boyfriend just ghosts her. Yeah. And then she has to figure out like, did this guy just bail on me? And as she looks into it, she starts to wonder, or do I have to save all of humanity? And I wrote it when I was on 30 Rock, and our hours were really long, so I would come home after work, and I was married already, but my wife was like me, born in the United States, but she was living in India. So I was like, I'm just going to write the craziest movie script I can think of, something that's totally unfilmable. There was something on 30 Rock that I really loved, that Tina Fey was like, Jack and Liz on any other show, we would arc them into having a romantic relationship. And right. I don't want to do that. Like, let's try and figure out a way to make an interesting show where we don't just ship them, which is I always thought was really fascinating. And she realized something, which is if that's the engine of the show, once you get them together, the tension drains out of it. And then it's really hard to keep that up in the similar way moving forward. Shows like Cheers, they kind of reset and they moved Diane out and they brought Christy Alley in to sort of restart that whole thing. But you sort of saw it on The Office, where it was an amazing show and you were really locked into that Jim Pam thing. But then once they're together, like, it just becomes a different show and you root for them in a different kind of way. So she was like, I'm not doing that. So when I was writing at night, I was like, I love that choice that she made. But the main drive that people think about in movies is falling in love and being in love. And I actually don't have a lot of experience writing that problem. But how do you find a new weird twist on that? So that's sort of where I started from. I was like, let me try and do a weird movie about two people who are in love. And I started breaking this story that I thought was like this sort of funny, fun, Crying of Lot 49 or Big Lebowski kind of weird comedy mystery. And I kind of broke it from there. And I was around this same time really obsessed with the idea of like why human beings need narratives. Like, why do we need stories to make sense of the world around us? Because we know most of the time, like, those two things, they just happen to happen in my day. They're not necessarily related, but that's not very satisfying at all.
The search for meaning kind of like gets in our way. Did you read *Sapiens*, the book?
Completely. Yeah. Yes. So this was around the time I was getting into that and wondering, like, well, why do we need that? And *Sapiens* brings up this interesting point, which is, well, that idea, being able to string together stories and communicate them to other human, is why we're not just one of millions of random species on Earth. It's why we humans now dominate Earth. But at the same time, it also is why every newspaper has a mindfulness column now, and everyone has a meditation app on their phone, because if you're always trying to make a story, you have that voice in your head and it makes you insane. Yeah. You always are trying to string together stuff. So I was like, what if we can do a love story where the main character is left between two terrible choices? Not being able to trust her mind and thinking that she's insane, or trusting her mind and it's the most insane story that she's ever heard in her life and she wants to not believe it. And that was kind of a fun kernel for me to play with, and that ended up being the genesis of this whole book.
How long did it take to write the book? How long did it marinate in your head? Because we have those marinations and sometimes they take a decade. Sometimes they happen very quickly. How long did this one marinate? And then you're like, okay, I'm going to put it down on paper. And then that next process is finding the artist. This was, I'm guessing, your first foray into graphic novels or comics, and there's some learning curves in there. Like, how long did the whole process take in those pieces?
Oh my God, this took me as long as possible, and I did all of it wrong. I hope to say this in a way that if you have an idea in your head, you should go make you should pick up your graphic novel and make it. Because I think I had the kernel of the idea, kind of the mystery in college, and I played around with it for a while, which was a long time ago for me. And then I wrote the movie script 10 years ago just as a spec script, thinking like, all right, I'll try and get other movie work off of this and as a feature writer. And that worked. And I actually got some other work, and I had some fun times with that. But it always sort of stuck in my craw, like, I like this story, and it's a bummer that only me and a couple of film executives have ever read it. Like, what could I do about it? And people would say to me, like, well, have you ever thought about making it an animated movie? And I would say, like, no, I want it to feel real. Like, there's something. Do you guys remember when you first watched The Matrix? Like, there's that time when they started talking about deja vu, and suddenly you're like, oh, I experienced deja vu. Like, The Matrix could be a crazy explanation of not a fantasy world, but the world I live in. And that made it click and made it more fun on a whole new level for me than almost any other sci-fi movie I've ever seen. And so I kind of like Genius Animals as like, what if this was a crazy, without revealing the mystery behind it, what if this was real? And as I started to think about it, I eventually met up with this artist who ended up doing the book, Junpei Shiozawa. One day, a couple of years ago, my wife came up to me, and we had 2-year-old twins at the time, and she was like, my friend from art school is teaching a watercolor landscape painting class in Ireland. When was the last time we have ever just looked at something beautiful and painted it? And I was like, never. I'm not an artist. I've never done that.
Why would I do that?
Well, this sounds great because we're very tired all the time right now. So I signed up to this class, and June is a fine artist. Like, he's a great watercolor painter. And we took it, and he just knows he's been a comics fan his whole life. He grew up in America, but he's half Japanese, and he lives in France, so he knows Japanese, manga. He knows the history of European comics. He loves just Jack Kirby style American comics, and he knew about all of this stuff. And we got to talking, and I started to realize, like, in a comic book, I don't like when I read Saga, I don't think of it as an animated movie. I'm picturing Star Wars or some big universe. Because of the genre, we think of it as that's just the way we're telling the story, and that it's not necessarily telling a cartoon story. Maybe we could do Genius Animals as a graphic novel, and it would feel like it's really taking place on this earth. And he and I started talking about it, and I just gave him the movie script. And I didn't know how to write a comic and break it out that way. And over a couple of, I guess I gave it to him 3 years ago, and he kind of sketched it out, and and he showed me the first kind of like sketches of what he thought it would look like. I had no idea what I was looking at. I had no idea about the pacing of it or anything. Right. And I was like, sure, I guess so.
Very smart to let him dictate those things, because as someone just coming into the medium and trying to direct the pacing, and what's really important is the page turns too, making sure that you have an incentive to turn the page at the bottom of, right of the page, or in manga, the bottom left. It's incredible, and it's kind of a big learning curve for people who just, like you and I say, or Katie say, the rule of thumb, page a minute.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, totally. And he was amazing at it, and we just kind of developed the vocabulary of pacing the jokes in a way that we didn't really know how to do. Because I remember telling June, like, this joke isn't funny, and I don't really know why. Like, if I was on set with Ed O'Neill or Alec Baldwin, I would say, like, don't hit it so hard. Throw that joke away.
Sure.
What would you do with that? And so we kind of worked that out, and we kind of developed like, this is what the comic tone is over time. And he brought a lot to it, and a lot of it was experimentation. And I got to say, 10 years into writing, sort of starting from scratch and not knowing what I was doing, and like sort of seeing it again for the first time, it became one of the most fun creative experiences of my career.
Yeah, for sure. Well, something that was really great, especially in the very beginning of the comic, is that like you wrote the female characters so well. A lot of the bar experience, I was like, I've had the same exact moment with friends, like just making shit up as like what we do.
Let's just mess with them because they're just treating us like a numbers game. So who cares?
Yeah, and it was so beautiful. Also, the way the artist created the frames that were just like them falling in love, and there was no dialogue involved, and it was so beautifully done that I was just like, that's like, it doesn't need any dialogue. You took the moment, especially in the pacing of the comic, to just show those like just very minute things that just kind of kept progressing the relationship, and it was. I don't know. I'm very excited about this comic.
I think that's where some of the comic is the strongest. Like, you reminded me of, in Geekscape, who are like really versed in a lot of stuff. Like, think of a combination between Cliff Robinson, who's a comic book cartoonist who does a lot of slice of life stuff, and like Charlie Kaufman as a narrative creator. You've seen Charlie Kaufman's films and things like Eternal Sunshine or Being John Malkovich, and I haven't watched this new one that he's got on Netflix, where it's I Don't Want to Live Here Anymore, or whatever it is. Like That seems like a big
Haven't seen it
investment. Seems like a big emotional investment for me. All of his movies are big
especially in
emotional.
2020. Like,
Yeah,
that's
they
the
feel
title
like-
alone.
in 2020, a Charlie Kaufman movie might just put me over the edge. But if you think of like a Charlie Kaufman type world, as it kind of starts out normal and slowly starts progressing into a rabbit hole of reality, mixed with the cartoon, but also definitely with that European flavor, of kind of a slice of life Cliff Robinson thing, or like Jeff Lemire. Jeff Lemire.
Oh, yeah.
Like Jeff Lemire's early stuff when he was in Canada writing things like Essex County, and it was just about these people growing up in a small town. I think that stuff is awesome, and I really recommend it. Geekscape is go to geniusanimals.net. You can see the whole PDF of all 8 chapters and read them all right there. I think you'll know what we're talking about when you do. But Vali, what is the road from here? You're going to continue to pursue this thing as a film or as a series, or you're going to continue to pursue this thing as maybe a form of in print? Is that right?
Yeah, we're trying to figure it out. We were originally going to put it out with an indie comics publisher, which is, it's always hard putting out an indie comic for adults. It's not
Sure.
it's not a segment of the market that gets a lot of love all the time. There's probably 1 or 2 great books that break through every year, but then when the pandemic happened, and we didn't even know how we were going to promote it, and we didn't know, as new creators in this space, Jude and I were like, what's going to happen here? There's no cons that we could even go sit at our table and tell people about it. And we were kind of going crazy at home, and we thought, well, why don't we just put it almost for ourselves? Like, let's just put it out online for free and see if people like it. And we've been so touched by the response people have had, and also the stuff that, one of the most fun things about putting stuff out there is people will be like, it reminded me of this, and it reminded me of this. And then it's a lot of times it's stuff I hadn't ever seen or read before. And then suddenly the great thing about comics is it's a little bit the Wild West. So that's just weird stuff that wouldn't exist anywhere else, that even if you're into it, how frequently do you hear about stuff that you've never heard of before? So that's been super, super fun. Since then, we've been touched by the response, and I've been talking to some people about maybe turning it into a TV show or something like that. I'll be honest, I'm excited for it. It also feels weird to just think like, I've already done that story now.
Right.
I a little bit want to
Sure.
move on with my life. So we'll find out. I would love to put it out. I would love to get a book version of it out, just because that's how I grew up looking at comics, and reading it in that way has always been fun. But we're figuring it out right now. We're not exactly how we're going to do it.
Vali, I had a socially distanced, this happened Saturday. I had a socially distanced meetup with my good friend Jason Inman, who's published a bunch of comics independently. He's been a frequent guest on the show, a close friend. And we were just kind of talking about the state of the comic book industry. I buy my comics every week. I go down to, not Secret Headquarters is the one near you, but I go to the House of Secrets here in Burbank. And
Oh, yeah.
And I just feel like comic book stores are great for people that are kind of our demographic, our age. But I told you Geekscapists about 2-3 weeks ago on the show to go check out Jerry Conway, the Punisher co-creator's Twitter, because he had just had this great story about when he was a kid going to DC Comics every week in the late 60s. He'd go to the DC Comics and do an open house. And one day he shows up and he's 13 years old and he has a suggestion for a comic book. And the publisher of DC at the time turns to him and says, "Hey, how old are you? 13? You're not my demographic." But Jerry Conway and those guys ended up inheriting comics in the 70s. And they've basically been writing comics ever since, to the detriment of comics and marketing. And now we're looking at a comic book reality for published comics that is the COVID-19 2020 reality. If there's anything that's going to force brick and mortar stores across the globe to close, and we all saw that Regal Cinemas, the British company that owns Regal Cinemas here in the States, is going to basically shutter the Regal Cinemas and be like, yeah, I thought about coming back. We're not going to do that because the new Bond movie is not coming out, and Dune just pulled their release date. We can't afford to do it. They're going kind of into hibernation, hopefully just hibernation. We're talking about comic book stores, and let's say you get this thing published, Valley, and I'm going to lead you to the conclusion we got to. You publish this thing only to put it where? And so I don't, and I'm not going to be fatalistic. I will give you the light at the end of the tunnel on this one. You've developed this thing, and really the model that you've put up in Geekscape is, again, go to geniusanimals.net and not just read the book, but what I want you all to do is leave your email there in the slot at the bottom of the page so that Valley can reach out to y'all and keep you updated on what's going on with the book. Because what I think is a valuable tool for you with this book is not just the quality as a showcase for what you can continue to do in that medium, but as an audience aggregate for collecting these emails. And if you do publish it, why need a publisher at all? There are a lot of independent print publishers that allow you to print runs of 20, 30, 50, 100, 150, 200 versions of this book. You take this thing, you go straight to this audience who have prepaid for the book off of some kind of a crowdfund type campaign. Like, you have their emails, you can say, hey, we're going to try and put out a print run of this thing. We're going to do it to order. We're going to run this for a month. It's going to be on Kickstarter. If we hit this number, you're all going to get your printed books. We're going to print 500 of them, or however many you pre-order. It's not necessarily a Kickstarter to get the project made. It's just a Kickstarter to get the project printed. Those get mailed out. Maybe if you do a little incentive, you get the signature version, maybe a different, this and that. And why try and compete with a comic book store owner who only wants to, you're going to fight to get one into each comic book store at most, because they're worried about making that space there for Spider-Man. And then what you're going to do, and I'm telling you right now, is
you're going down the whole trail.
Listen, I'm his manager now in the comic store.
Really?
No, listen,
everybody's managing too. Everybody on the podcast.
Then what Valley's going to do, once he's run this Kickstarter, and I'm going to let this let's let the economy recover post-Trump a little bit. Let's say this Kickstarter is going to be February, March.
Okay.
The print it's going to go to the printers April, May. You're going to get these things in your hand in June, and you're going to bring them to the excess, because you're always going to order like 50 more, maybe 30 more. You're going to bring those to the Geekscape booth at Comic-Con San Diego next summer, 2021. We're going to have Valley as a guest at the Geekscape booth right there on the floor.
The idea of there being a con again is so, it seems so
nice.
wild.
It's so idealistic.
And if there's not a con, it's going to be 2022, Valley.
2022 seems a little bit more realistic in terms of a vaccine and a global vaccine. Saying that.
Inject me with the vaccine the week before, I'll be at Comic-Con the following week. I'll probably start mutating into the Hulk. But
Lyndon, I think you're just on steroids. I think you're just on a shit ton of steroids right now. You're feeling good.
Now, can I ask you a question back from your conversation with your friend? Because Secret Headquarters is my local shop too, and I
got you pinpointed. I drove past your house. I drove past your house this morning.
That's perfect. and one of my favorite things is to go down there, and now they know what I like, and I always every time I walk into a comic store, I say the same thing. Do you have anything that's weird and funny? And they all and the great thing is every comic book store they do, and they often bring up stuff that I've never heard of before, and it's kind of amazing because that's how I discover new stuff. And admittedly, I think Secret Headquarters is a particularly amazing store, and that staff is particularly wonderful. But I do believe every comics book store has those people there. If you don't have those spaces, how do you do discovery? How do people find out about stuff? How do you cut through? How would you yourself or you guys find new stuff that you love?
Well, the truth is, we're in America, we're not necessarily supposed to be, because the comic industry will not. I mean, it doesn't survive. We're starting to hear DC Comics wanting to start going further and further down the sole trade paperback route, and Secret Headquarters is designed to be mainly for us, the people in our demographic and our age group, because it is heavy on the trade paperback. They don't put a lot of shelf space up for monthly comics, and monthly comics should be geared towards kids. But without the spinner racks and the Safeways and the Ralphs and the grocery stores, I think that it's doomed. Even with these enormous $500 million advertisements that Disney puts out for comic books, I think that monthly comics are doomed. I think what we have to do is we have to look to the places like where your artists screw up culturally and be like, okay, in France and in Japan, these are things that weren't killed by the comics code in the 60s, in the 50s, where comics started to cut out the romance, cut out the violence, cut out the different genres, and start gearing straight towards comic books that included superheroes. This is something this is a problem that's very American, is this tailoring towards superhero comics, and it has led us. It's like if you went to the movies this weekend, which it's just a fantasy during COVID.
Everyone's doing it. Yeah,
Valley, if for the last 30 years we had been going to the movies and we only had Westerns, how would there still be movies? And comic books have faced that reality for the last 30 years, where predominantly here in the States, they have only really been superhero books and had shelf space for superhero books. So you go to France, you go to Japan, and you see people reading manga or more mature titles, in public. And it's not just kids, it's not just males in our demographic, it's moms and dads and it's the people doing the grocery shopping. This is an acceptable storytelling format and everywhere really, but the Western or US audience. So how do we build that back? How do you discover those books? Well, First off, we don't hide them. And I love Secret Headquarters. I love our stores because you're right. They're the indie record stores where it's like, hey, have you heard this band? But we have to start breaking it apart. And we have to start making more comics for your mother, for your dad. I think Genius Animals is a great option for them.
That's the thing, is that, like, especially because I'm so deeply ingrained in comedy, in the comedy space, like that was one of those things that I just, like, when I started reading it, it just, like, it hit immediately, and I was like, oh, I want to keep reading and keep reading. Like my local one is Earth to Comics, and I love them so much. I haven't been near them recently. I'm afraid to go out. I'm a very agoraphobic at the moment, but Comixology has been kind of my go-to space. It's a digital space that you can, like, and I think the thing that really does promote comics is this kind of conversation, this back and forth, and the, like, what is it that you're reading at this point? Like, what is it that you're into?
Yes.
And a lot of the times, like, I have a friend who used to work at BuzzFeed who just gave me a stack of comics for my birthday and was like, I think you would like these. Here, take these. And that's the time where I was like, oh yeah, no. And, like, it's just like knowing each other's, like, loves and dislikes and whatnot. And the fact that, like, when Jonathan told me that you were coming on, and I was, like, starting to read a little bit more about you, I was like, oh, well, this is my jam. Like, this is
She said, I'm gonna need to dress up. Where's my bow tie? Let's be very clear
not at
about
all.
how that conversation went, Katie.
Listen, I am making money after this. I'm not making money here. I am making money after this. Some of us.
You're not getting paid? I'm getting paid a ton for this.
Wait,
yeah. Who takes Venmo?
Speaking of Venmo, I'm at El Sass. No, okay. No, seriously. The company is called The Go Game, and it's very orange, so there's a big orange theme. Anyway.
It's a Trump company.
No. Oh,
You're working for the orange person.
No,
I
don't want to
Katie,
work for the orange baby.
I'm going to pull that joke because I don't want you getting fired.
Thank you very much.
We got Rick on YouTube in the comments saying that Pirate Bay high-seating torrents works as a curated list of high-quality content. I'm like, I'm going to go ahead and say and throw that one away, Rick, partially, because I think that obviously we can't maintain the overhead and the amount of work. Again, you heard Vali just say that he spent 3 years on this book once it had already been written, just on the artistic side. That will not cover anybody's overhead giving it away for free. But if we did discover some form of a Spotify model, as an artist that's also pretty heavy-handed and heavily one-sided, I don't know how to do a Spotify model for comics and what that
would be interesting, though. Like, if you could have a curated, like, selection, like, hey, I'm into these, like, top 5 buzzword type things. Like,
I think that's the takeaway. And Rick continues on Twitter to say, Twitter mentions from people I like does lead to books on his wish list. So is there an Amazon version of a Spotify playlist that Jonathan, Katie, Vali creates an Amazon wish list, not an Amazon wish list type, hey, this is what I'm reading, this is what I'm all about, and just throws it up there. I think this is a problem that not unlike Vali's wife running for office, we have to go down ticket to solve a lot of this stuff. It's not just going to be like, oh, DC and Marvel have to fix this, because they really are. They can lose money for the next 50 years in comics, and they don't care, because it's pretty clear that this is a very valuable IP generation tool for them, where they're just establishing stories that they can later spin off into bigger investments on screen that have an actual return for them, rather than Spider-Man, which, let's be clear, in the early 90s, it had a print run in the millions, now has a print run of about 100,000. I could walk in Valley's neighborhood and hand Spider-Man comics out and be done with that print run pretty quickly. The print runs are down. How, as an independent creator, do you grow this thing back up again? Like, this is a down ticket option solution. We have to, as independent creators, start building them up. And you've mentioned Brian K. Vaughan. I mentioned Jeff Lemire. These are guys who have worked for the big two in comic books, but they've also led them. Hey, you enjoyed what you got here? Now try my indie book. Try my saga. Try my Rick Remender book. Try these different books. And it's got to come from the bottom up.
And I've been fascinated by what I see on Panel Syndicate too, which is a little bit of the model that you're talking about. I don't know how much people are going there to get their books, but it has kind of sort of the music equivalent of Bandcamp, I think, where you can kind of pay. I really love the idea that if it's whatever you can pay for a lot of that stuff.
And that's Brian K. Vaughan is involved in that, and he's put out a few books over that format. And what's really cool about it too is, I think one thing that Panel Syndicate does is I think we have to break up the format a little bit. Again, when movies started suffering at the hands of television and people weren't going to, these bastards put buzzers under the seats. They put 3D. They created, different formats. They brought things out in 70 millimeter. They started doing things that no other format could do. What is the thing that comic books can do that no other format can do? That's a tough call, but ultimately what Panel Syndicate can do is they've not been shy about creating a widescreen comic, a comic that you have to read horizontally, a comic that you have to read out of sequence. I think it's going to take some experimentation, and it's going to take a lot of failure. And for an industry that is has edged itself pretty close to the cliff's edge already, it's going to take some brave individuals, braver than I, to do this thing, unless that real idea comes in. It's like, Jonathan, this is the only way to do it. I'm no savior, though. I've already offered y'all Geekscape for $50.
The fascinating thing is, whenever you go to an indie comics festival, like the people doing weird, interesting content, which to me seems like it should be the hard part, they're there. Like, you go there and you're suddenly like, all of this stuff looks so weird and cool. Like, I want to look at every single thing. Why doesn't someone create a pipe so I don't have to wait once a year to go to the LA Comics Art Fest to see it all?
And what's the distribution format for that? I thought that the iPad really was going to solve a lot of these problems with things like Comixology and Panel Syndicate and these things. I thought that the iPad, but at the end of the day, people are just taking their 2D printed comics, their 5x4 color funnies, and putting them on. And I think it's got to go beyond that. I think there has to be a level of interactivity. And I think the canaries in the coal mine, as I tell some of my new media students and things like that, is we have to look at the companies that are the industries that are very adaptable and very quick to adapt with technology, and also distribution. Music, which has a quick distribution turnaround and lower production overhead. And we have to look to video games, which embraces technology fearlessly out of just competitive need. And what level of interactivity and what level of artistry can the video games teach us, and what level of tearing down in quick distribution and cheap distribution can music teach us? Like, the MP3 in YouTube saved music in a lot of ways. Where are these saviors for comics? What is that equivalent in comics? And Neil Fisher on Facebook just says, I'm just loving this topic, how to get eyeballs on comics, how Japan and France have lost the kids and soup stigma of comics, and love kickstarting comics, and love how digital comics are growing fast while indie comics, Kickstarter comics are also doing great. I don't know, man. I'm just trying to get Valley to kickstart a print version. I'm just trying to get them to hang out with me in San Diego next year, because we've been doing the booth.
That'll be easy. That for nothing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's spend a summer in San Diego, a week in San Diego with me. You'll be done. You'll be like, I can see why people don't come back.
2 kids, man. They're in a heartbeat. I'll be waiting for you.
Ricto on YouTube comes back with embrace new technologies. Digital comics can sell non-fungible tokens that are tradable, collectibles. Oh, that's a cool idea. Trading and collecting comics digitally signals your fandom. Oh yeah, like a badge system. That would be cool and can appreciate in value. I think that might be tough. Appreciating in value might be tough. You have to have a limited print type of idea. Buy a digital comic, get an NFT. There's something there. I think there's something there.
Yeah.
The NBA is releasing NFTs. I know no one knows what they are now, but they could be big. And you know what? There might be something there. They get issued on blockchains. This conversation's about to get way too smart for me. But thank you, thank you, Ricto. Not to be confused with Rick. On YouTube, there's two. There's a Ricto and a Ricto. There's a Ricto and a Rick on our YouTube. Very valuable comics.
That's great.
Yeah.
Vali, did you think that you were going to have this conversation when you came on? Or
I'm always ready to sell blockchain, buy blockchain. I've
Bitcoin, all that.
made and lost millions during the course of this podcast.
Later on, he's going to be rapping like 2 Chainz. We're going to be doing all of it here on Geekscape.
You can't say 2 Chainz and not have the echo of 2 Chainz.
That's a pretty good echo.
Geekscape, let's be clear. This whole episode is just a warm-up for Katie to then go to work and have to spin that bow tie for a bunch of Australian kids.
Yeah, you're hyping up 2 Chainz' corporate act, I see.
Yes, it's really what I'm going for, guys.
Neil is back with actually what I think is a dangerous suggestion, which could actually really work financially, but might wear out an audience in the same way it has in video games. Adapt the microtransactions that are in video games to comics, and that is the worry that if you do adapt, if you do an entertainment arts model and adapt it, that might be tough if you start doing things like skins and just start trying to milk.
I mean, if there was any way that you could like cross over where you could get like either a skin from the comic or you could get some kind of like I know profile photos are a huge thing. I've got some from Ghost of Tsushima at the moment. Like if there's any way you can get like that kind of like a comic photo onto your profile, that would be kind of cool too. Like that's a cool transaction, but I mean, I personally would recommend to go against the EA model of like in
fleecing
content.
The audience for just cheap content. If there's a way to like get the artwork from the comic and be able to easily scan it, give it to my tattoo artist and be like, that's what I want on my face. I think that what?
I can send you a PDF.
Just get an octopus, like all.
You think I want to be? Yeah, I'll get an octopus from Genius Animals, just tattooed on the side of my face.
Just sort of like a Mike Tyson,
like a feather,
thing.
like a crow's feather on the other side. Yeah. If y'all want to know what I'm talking about, I'm not just randomly rambling. That I usually do, but not now. Go to Real Genius. Actually, Real Genius is a fantastic movie. Don't go.
That also is great. Just if you're looking for stuff to do, that's also a pretty good use of your time.
GeniusAnimals.net is where you can find Vali's book. And check it out. I don't know. Have you enjoyed your Geekscape, Vali?
I have enjoyed this. This is fun. You know what? Like, it's so because we're all stuck in quarantine. I don't really get to meet like people who are into the same stuff that I haven't known for 20 years already anymore for like half a year now. So that is one thing that has been very fun about publicity. And mostly it's been on social media, which is nice, but the returns to that get slower. This is a more real conversation, which I am enjoying.
And dude, you just blind emailed me. Like,
yeah, I don't know how. It must have been via social media. I saw some stuff that you guys were doing, and then went to the site, and I can't remember how I even found it.
He's not a total idiot. He hired a female co-host, so I think. I
mean,
I gotta roll the dice on this one.
Yeah, yeah, no, totally.
Where did you grow up, Vali? Where did you grow up?
I grew up in North Central Pennsylvania, right on the New York State border. What about you guys? Are you guys from LA?
No, I'm not a unicorn. I'm from Arizona, so I completely cut off ties to that section of my life. But born in California, grew up a little bit in North Carolina, and then jumped to Arizona. Now I'm here.
Where in North Carolina?
I believe Charlotte. Yeah, Charlotte, North Carolina.
Okay.
Yeah,
nice.
Great basketball team.
Team. Yeah. But you're not talking about the Hornets.
I know. I'm in college.
I just tell people I grew up in a space prison, but nobody believes me, so I just say Austin, which is where I grew up. But
nice.
This is all old stories for Geekscapists, and again, Geekscapists. I've been doing this show, and last week we celebrated International Podcast Day here on the show, and I love doing it. All of our old episodes going back to 2006 are up on the whatever podcatcher you're listening to this on. If this is your first Geekscape, like hit that share button or leave us a review and enjoy it. But the main thing is we're here for you. We're here for talking to the audience, and we're here for our guests. So again, you want to go to geniusanimals.net and check out Vali's work. And Vali, as a TV writer, you're writer producer on Modern Family and 30 Rock. My name is Earl. What's going forward with you? Are you starting to get back into a writer's room? Are you able to start putting things back together? Because there is slow movement on some of this stuff.
Yeah, I'm working on a pilot right now. But actually, this reminded me, this may be a story that you guys and your Geekscape fans would enjoy. I used to work at ABC Studios, and I had an office down the hall from Stan Lee.
No.
And we used to work, the sort of snack room where I would go get my coffee was down his hallway. So I used to walk down it every day. And of course, this is probably one of 30 Stan Lee offices around LA and New York. So he was never there. But one day I remember going to my office and his conference room, go to get coffee, and his conference room was open. And I was like, oh, this is crazy. So I peeked inside and it was totally empty. But there was a big conference table in the middle of the room. There was 6 bars of boxed Irish Spring soap in the center of the conference table. Then on the whiteboard, it had Act 1, Act 2, Act 3. There was nothing else on there except at the bottom of Act 1, Stan Lee had written, "Gets magic powers." And that was it. I never saw Stan Lee. I came back the next day. The door was closed again. I have no idea what project that was for. That was it. That was that's my Stan Lee experience.
At the end of Act 1, he got magic powers.
Yes. And I was like, this checks out. This seems like Stan Lee's story-breaking room.
That's a writer's...
Yeah, that's how you break a story for like 30 Rock or Modern Family, right? Like that's how you do that.
Yeah, you start with there. I assume it got more refined. I'm very eager to know what that ended up being.
Yeah, totally.
I just think that is like a graduate level class on writing comics or writing superhero stories the Stan Lee way. If he's by the end of the first act, he does not have superpowers, like what are you doing?
We have a problem. Yeah. I was so happy. I was like, this could not have been more perfect. This is exactly what I want. I don't want any more information than this.
Well, Geekscape, Stan was a longtime fan of and friend of the show. We threw a Comic-Con party with Stan and his company, and we had him on the show. And some of that stuff is up on the channel you're watching right now if you're watching this on YouTube at Geekscape TV. And we miss Stan dearly, and we really miss Stan. He was the best. Even though the first time we met him, we asked for a station ID, and he called us Dickscape. I'm going to go ahead and notch that one up to my mumbling and try to explain what the name of the...
Was he telling a joke, you think, or he just was like...
Yeah, that's it. That's what it is.
We were on a red carpet, and I said, can you just say you're watching Geekscape? And he said, you're watching Dickscape. And I was like, well, that's pretty accurate, too.
Do you have that as a t-shirt yet? Because I would totally... buy that as you're watching Dickscape.
You hear Katie? Katie's trying to work her way to San Diego Comic-Con next year as well with a little merch.
No, I will tell you, I was at Kamikaze Con. What was it?
Yeah, that was Sans.
Yeah. I was helping a friend out. She does original zombie gnomes. It's like the little Yeah. They're fantastic. And I was helping her out. I was wearing like a gnome hat and a beard and just like, barking to everybody who passed by. And lo and behold, at one point, Stan Lee is walking down, and I don't remember what I was saying, but I was just like, hey, you sir, do you want to have a zombie gnome hat or whatever? And he was just like, yeah. And that was the only Stan Lee interaction. He just thumbs up, yeah, and just walked on by.
let's wrap this up because Katie's got to go to work. But
Yes.
George Pepper, real quick, says, "Do you think LA Comic Con is going to happen this year?" Well, I think we talked about it last week on the show. LA Comic Con is scheduled to work to go up the second weekend in December. They're being very open with the idea that the city of LA and the convention center will tell them no if the circumstances go away, and I think they are taking safety precautions. I'm going to go ahead and. I mean, it's not. I don't know. They've sent me an email about perhaps hosting some of their stage events like I did last year, but I don't need to do those things yet. I mean, I am a huge supporter from the very first year of that convention that was Kamikaze and was Stan's convention, but. I think we got to play it a little bit smarter here at Geekscape. As I can't exactly open the show and be like, "Hey, y'all need to vote and be pro science," then turn around and be like, "Don't mind if I do. I got to talk to Todd McFarlane."
People are forgetting about Todd McFarlane. If he doesn't get out there on the stage, how will people know?
How will he be relevant?
Yeah. Yeah.
Valley, so like, how much are you going to be involved in LA Comic Con then?
I might be the only guy there. I can't tell.
Let's sidestep the whole thing and just go download his book and read his book at geniusanimals.net. Val, thanks for coming on the show, dude. Anytime.
Thanks so much for doing the show, guys. This has been so fun, especially, I hear it all the time, but in times like this, it's fun to just goof off and laugh about cool, weird things. It's a blast.
Well, you're a homie now. You're a Geekscapist. If you need anything from Katie or I, just reach out. And I'm not being facetious.
I would love to borrow some cash if that's
possible. Let's do it.
Yeah.
Well, once I finish this game later on tonight, I got
just like $30,000. I'm good for it.
Oh,
yeah.
He's gonna skip the whole Kickstarter and just go straight to printing his own books. Like, oh yeah, Kickstarter thing. It sounds like a lot of work. Sounds like a pain in the ass. Geekscapists, you know what to do. Geniusanimals.net. We're Geekscape. You can find us anywhere and everywhere online. Just search for Geekscape and follow us. And there's that. Some of y'all have asked where you could watch our award-winning film. If you find me on Twitter or Instagram and you click on the link in the bio, that'll take you to my link tree. And I've gone ahead and put the ticket window for the final week of Chasing Fletcher Allen Playing up there, and I think you'll recognize some Geekscape friendly faces in there beyond Katie and beyond Heidi. You'll see Phil Lamar, who you'll all love from, I don't know, a million things, yes. Mad TV and all that, but also Cooper Barnes, who you know from Nickelodeon's Henry Danger and Danger Force, Eugene Bird, who you saw in a million things like Arrow and 8 Mile. He's been on the show, and I know I'm forgetting a million things. Damien Portier, who was the original Thanos for Joss Whedon in his Avengers films. We just kind of Yuri Lowenthal, who plays Spider-Man in the PS4 version, has been everything. I talked to him yesterday. Guys, this is basically a movie that we made with and for you, so go enjoy it. And that's about it. Geekscapists, I love you. Katie's got to go to work.
Sorry.
And Valley has to go back to normalcy, or whatever it is in 2020. Geniusanimals.net. Geekscape loves you. Don't hate, create. For Katie and for Valley, thank you. Tell your friends about us. Leave a review and all that. Over and out. Peace.
Thanks, everybody.